The storm rolled in like a confession long overdue, thunder cracking the sky open just as the power line snapped under the weight of rain-lashed oaks. Brooke stood frozen in the kitchen, her hands still gripping the edge of the sink, water from the faucet pooling around her knuckles like tears she hadn't shed yet. "Mom, you okay?" The voice cut through the dark, soft but steady, belonging to Lila, her stepdaughter, all of 19 and carrying a flashlight like it was a lantern against the world's unraveling. In the beam's unsteady glow, Lila's silhouette sharpened. Tall, unyielding with that quiet fire Brooke had always admired from afar. The kind that burned slow in the marrow of Georgia summers. They were alone in the old house on Elmwood Lane, the one Harlan, Brooke's wife, had inherited from her oil-baron father, a relic of Monroe's faded glory where the river muddied the line between haves and have-nots. Harlan was away in Atlanta, chasing boardroom deals that paid for the facade but left the bones of their marriage hollow. Brooke had married her 5 years back after Lila's mother passed, thinking it was duty calling her name. Step in, steady the ship. But duty had a way of twisting into something sharper, something that whispered in the quiet hours when the magnolias drooped heavy with secrets. The lights had flickered out mid-dinner, plunging the room into shadow, and Brooke's heart had stuttered not from the blackout, but from the sudden proximity. Lila across the table, her laughter dying into the dark like a match snuffed too soon. Now here they were, fumbling in the utility room, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and exposed wiring. "Hand me that screwdriver," Brooke said, her voice rougher than intended, kneeling beside the breaker box as if fixing circuits could mend the fraying threads inside her. Lila knelt too, close enough that Brooke could feel the warmth radiating off her, a contrast to the chill seeping through the floorboards. Their fingers brushed as Lila passed the tool. Accidental, fleeting. But it lingered in Brooke's pulse like the aftershock of thunder. "You don't have to do this alone," Lila murmured, her breath stirring the loose strands of Brooke's hair. "Harlan's always gone, leaving you to hold everything together. It's not fair." Brooke twisted the screwdriver, sparks jumping like accusations, but she didn't pull away. Fairness had left their lives years ago, when she'd said, "I do," to a woman whose love felt more like obligation than oxygen. Harlan was kind in her way, solid, predictable, the daughter of Monroe's elite who saw Brooke as the rough-hewn savior from the wrong side of the tracks. Brooke, with her calloused hands from years tending the family garage before it folded, had been the fixer. Cars, hearts, now this godforsaken house. But Lila saw through the welds and patches straight to the rust beneath. The bulb in the hallway fixture hummed back to life, casting a warm, unreliable glow over the faded wallpaper patterned with climbing roses. Ironic, Brooke thought, for a home where thorns hid in every corner. They rose together, wiping grime from their palms, the silence stretching taut between them. Lila's eyes, dark and searching in the new light, held Brooke's a beat too long. "There," Lila said, her voice dropping to something intimate, almost reverent. "You make it work just like always. But what if? What if you didn't have to?" Brooke swallowed, the words lodging in her throat like gravel. What if? 2 syllables that unraveled everything. She turned away, busying herself with the toolbox, but Lila's hand on her arm stopped her cold. "Brooke," she said. "Not Mom, not this time," the name slipping out like a key turning in a forbidden lock. "I see you. The way you look at the horizon when Harlan's talking about the firm, like you're mapping an escape route no one's drawn yet. And the way you look at me. God, it's killing me to pretend I don't notice." The air thickened, charged with the storm's retreating rumble, and Brooke's world tilted. Lila's confession hung there, raw and unadorned, the kind of truth that could shatter glass houses like theirs. Brooke's mind raced back through the months, stolen glances over breakfast coffee, the brush of shoulders in the narrow hallway, the ache that bloomed in quiet moments when Lila played her guitar on the back porch, chords weaving stories Brooke longed to step into. Society's script was clear: stepmother, daughter, wife, a triad etched in Monroe's judgmental stone, where whispers about those kinds of women slithered through church pews and country club brunches. Betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was a scarlet letter sewn into the fabric of small-town survival. "I can't," Brooke whispered, but her body betrayed her, leaning into the touch as if starved for it. Lila's fingers traced a tentative path up her arm, light as a secret shared in the dark. Why not? Because of her? Or because of them? The ones who'd call us broken before we even tried to mend. The question pierced, drawing blood from old wounds. Brooke thought of her own youth, the girl from the Mill District who'd loved fiercely and lost to the town's cold shoulder, burying her heart under layers of pragmatism until Harlan's steady hand offered a lifeline. But lifelines could choke, and now with Lila's gaze pulling her under, Brooke felt the current drag her toward truth. They stood there, inches apart, the fixed light above them a mocking beacon, until Lila closed the gap, her lips brushing Brooke's cheek. Not a kiss but a promise soft and searing. That night, sleep evaded Brooke like a ghost in the attic. She lay in the king-sized bed she shared with Harlan, the sheets cool and impersonal, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin. Down the hall, Lila's door creaked faintly, a siren's call Brooke ignored with every ounce of will she had left. Dawn crept in gray and unforgiving, the storm's remnants dripping from the eaves like reluctant apologies. Harlan called from the city, her voice clipped through static. "Everything all right down there? Power's out all over the county." Brooke assured her it was fine, the lie tasting like ash, while her free hand clenched the quilt, knuckles white as bone. Breakfast was a minefield of normalcy. Eggs sizzling in the cast-iron skillet, coffee brewing strong and black, Lila across the table in her university hoodie, fresh from a shower that left her hair damp and curling at the ends. They avoided eyes at first, the air humming with unspoken voltage, but Monroe's world intruded via the local paper slapped on the porch by old Mr. Hargrove, his squint always lingering too long on their doorstep. Headlines screamed of the annual Founders Ball, Harlan's domain where the town's elite danced on polished floors, pretending the undercurrents of prejudice didn't swirl beneath. "You're going, right?" Lila asked, folding the section on socialites, her tone casual but laced with edge. "Harlan's expecting you to play the part." Brooke poured more coffee, steam rising like a veil. "It's her night. I'm just the plus one who knows how to two-step without stepping on toes." But the words felt hollow, a script from a life she'd outgrown. Lila's foot nudged hers under the table. Accidental? Intentional? And heat flushed Brooke's skin, a reminder of the line they'd towed the night before. The day unfolded in fragments, Brooke tending the garden out back, pulling weeds from the azaleas that Harlan insisted on, their blooms a riot of pink against the clay soil. Lila joined her uninvited, kneeling in the dirt, her hands quick and sure as she unearthed a strangled vine. "This place is choking itself," Lila said, wiping soil on her jeans. "All these rules, plant this, prune that. What if we let it wild a little?" Brooke glanced up, the sun filtering through live oaks draped in Spanish moss, casting dappled shadows that danced like temptations. Lila's words echoed the ones from the dark, stirring the sediment of doubt Brooke had long suppressed. They worked in companionable silence until noon, the rhythm of trowel against earth sinking their breaths, until Lila's voice broke it again, softer now. "Last night, I meant it. Every word. I felt this pull since you moved in, Brooke. Like gravity, but the kind that scares you because falling means everything changes." Brooke's trowel stilled, dirt crumbling between her fingers. The garden blurred, memories flooding. Lila at 16, all gangly limbs and guarded eyes, grieving her mother while Harlan buried herself in work. Brooke had been the constant, homework help turning to late-night talks, shared recipes for cornbread that masked deeper hungers. Society deemed it maternal, pure. But purity was a lie they both knew, laced with the poison of forbidden fruit. "We're family," Brooke said, the word a shield, brittle as eggshell. "Harlan. She trusts us. The town watches us. One wrong step and it's all ash." Lila's laugh was bitter, a sound too old for her years. "Family? That's what they say to keep us in line. But look at us, really look. Harlan's married to her legacy, not you. And me? I'm just the orphan they pity." She reached across the flower bed, her hand covering Brooke's, earth bridging the gap. "What if we burned the script? What if love wasn't the sin they make it out to be?" The touch ignited something primal, a spark in Brooke's chest that spread like kudzu. She pulled away, but not before memorizing the warmth, the callus on Lila's thumb from guitar strings. A map of passions Harlan never strummed. Afternoon brought errands into town, Monroe's Main Street a tableau of stratified lives. The boutique where Harlan bought her pearls, the diner where mill workers nurse coffees and grudges. Brooke spotted Mrs. Ellsworth at the market, her tongue already wagging about poor Harlan's girl, running wild at that liberal college up north. Lila, trailing behind with the grocery bags, met the gaze head-on, chin lifted in defiance that made Brooke's heart swell and ache in equal measure. Back home the house felt smaller, walls pressing in with expectations. Dinner was takeout from the Greek place, Harlan's guilty pleasure when she was away, and they ate on the porch swing, crickets chorusing as the sun dipped low. Lila's stories from Oregon State filled the air. Protests for rights unspoken in Monroe, friends who loved openly without apology. It's not chaos, she said, passing the tzatziki. It's freedom. Why can't we have that here? Brooke sipped her wine, the Merlot warming her from within, loosening the knots. Because here, freedom's a luxury for folks like Harlan's crowd. For us women like me from the river bottoms, it's survival. Loving who you want? That's a risk that could cost everything. But even as she spoke, her eyes traced the curve of Lila's jaw in the twilight, the way her lips curved around words like poetry. The swing creaked, a metronome to their building tension, until Lila set her plate aside and turned, her knee pressing against Brooke's thigh. Tell me you don't feel it, Lila challenged, voice low, eyes gleaming with the recklessness of youth unchained. Tell me and I'll stop. Walk away, pretend it's nothing. Brooke opened her mouth to lie, to summon the duty that had defined her, but the words dissolved. Instead she leaned in, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling in the humid air. The kiss came tentative, a question in the press of lips, soft, searching, tasting of salt and unspoken vows. Brooke's hand cupped Lila's neck, pulling her closer, the world narrowing to the swing's sway and the thunder of her own heart. They broke apart gasping, the porch light, the one they'd fixed, casting halos around them like a spotlight on a stage neither had auditioned for. This is madness, Brooke whispered, but her fingers lingered, tracing Lila's collarbone through the thin cotton of her shirt. Lila smiled, sad and sure. Or it's the sanest thing we've ever done. As night fell fully, they retreated inside, hands brushing stairs, the house a conspirator in their silence. Brooke lay awake again, Harlan's pillow untouched beside her, the ghost of Lila's taste haunting her dreams. A by-kitch unfolding in the quiet of Monroe's watchful dark. The days blurred into a haze of stolen intimacies, each one a thread pulling tighter at the seams of Brooke's resolve. Mornings began with coffee shared at the kitchen island, Lila's foot hooking around Brooke's ankle under the pretense of reaching for sugar, a code they invented without words. Harlan's calls grew shorter, her voice echoing with the fatigue of mergers and malice, oblivious to the shift in the house's pulse. Miss you both, she'd say, and Brooke would murmur agreements, guilt coiling like smoke in her lungs. Lila's presence became a gravitational force, drawing Brooke into uncharted orbits. They'd wander the back acres, where the property bled into untamed woods, Harlan's inheritance sprawling like an indifferent king. There, amid pine needles carpeting the forest floor, Lila would lean against a trunk and pull Brooke into her arms, kisses deepening from tentative explorations to hungers that left them breathless against bark-roughened skin. You're mine here, Lila would whisper, her hands mapping Brooke's back as if committing it to memory, and Brooke would surrender, the wildness of the woods mirroring the chaos within. But Monroe's tendrils reached even there. The town was a living organism, its veins the gossip lines from beauty parlors to bait shops, pulsing with judgments on everything from crop yields to bedroom sins. Brooke felt the stares when she drove Lila to the bus stop for her weekend visits home. Eyes narrowing at the too long goodbye hugs, whispers slithering like cottonmouths in the underbrush. Harlan's got her hands full with that one, Mrs. Hargrove confided at the post office, her smile all teeth. College changes a girl. Makes her forget her raising. Brooke nodded through clenched jaws, mailing Harlan's latest package of pressed linens, her mind replaying the night before. Lila's laughter bubbling as they danced in the living room to old Patsy Cline records, bodies swaying close until the music faded and their rhythm took over, slow and insistent on the Persian rug Harlan had shipped from some European auction. Betrayal tasted sweetest in those moments, a forbidden nectar that drowned the bitterness of deceit. Yet the pressure mounted, invisible weights pressing on Brooke's chest. Harlan announced her return for the Founders' Ball, a whirlwind of preparations descending like locusts. Dresses dry-cleaned, invitations RSVP'd, the house polished to reflect the veneer of perfection. Lila helped, her touch lingering on Brooke's waist as they hung garlands in the foyer, but tension simmered beneath. "She's coming back to her cage," Lila said one evening, folding napkins with precision that belied her turmoil. "And you're locking the door behind her." Brooke paused, linen slipping from her fingers. "It's not that simple. She's given me stability, this life. Without her, I'm back to scraping by, the town garage girl who couldn't keep her own heart in check." But the words rang false even to her, echoes of a narrative she'd clung to like driftwood. Lila's eyes darkened, hurt flickering like a shorted wire. Stability or stagnation? You deserve more than being someone's anchor while they sail away. The argument hung unresolved, festering as the ball approached. Brooke threw herself into work at the local library, shelving books on Southern history that mirrored her own entrapment. Tales of women bound by bloodlines and bylaws, their loves curtailed by convention's cruel hand. Lila retreated to her room, guitar strings humming laments that seeped under doors, each note a plea Brooke ached to answer. Harlan arrived 2 days before the event, her Mercedes crunching gravel like brittle bones, arms laden with garment bags and grievances from the city. She swept in, kissing Brooke's cheek with perfunctory affection, her perfume sharp as regret. "Darling, you look worn. The storm take more than the lights." Lila hovered in the doorway, her hug for Harlan brief, eyes sliding to Brooke with a hunger that twisted the knife. Dinner that night was a performance, Harlan regaling them with tales of cutthroat contracts, Lila nodding politely while her fork scraped plate like suppressed screams. Brooke mediated, laughter forced, the undercurrent of their secret pulling at her like undertow. Later, as Harlan soaked in the clawfoot tub, Lila cornered Brooke in the laundry room, pressing her against the dryer, lips claiming in a kiss that bruised with desperation. "Don't let her erase us," Lila begged, hands fisting Brooke's shirt. "Promise me." "I promise," Brooke lied or half-lied, her body arching into the touch even as her mind fractured. They parted with trembling hands, the hum of the machine masking their gasps. The Founders' Ball unfolded in the old armory, chandeliers dripping crystal over gowns that whispered of old fortunes. Harlan shone, her emerald dress hugging curves earned from yoga retreats, arm linked through Brooke's as they navigated the crowd, judges, bankers, the ghosts of Monroe's Confederate past dressed in finery. Lila had begged off, citing a headache, but Brooke felt her absence like a phantom limb, the dance floor a minefield of Harlan's expectations. "Waltz with me," Harlan commanded during the first slow number, her hand cool on Brooke's waist. They moved in practice sync, but Brooke's steps faltered, her gaze drifting to the shadowed corners where society's enforcers lurked, women with pearls and pedigrees, men with ledgers of leverage. Harlan sensed the drift, pulling her closer. "What's eating you, love? You've been distant since the blackout." Brooke spun her out of reach, the lie forming easy. "Just the house settling. Old bones creak." But as the music swelled, a figure slipped through the throng, Lila uninvited, in a simple black sheath that hugged her like midnight, hair loose and defiant. Their eyes met across the room, a current arcing invisible but electric, and Brooke's world narrowed to that gaze, Harlan's hand a shackle she suddenly despised. Lila approached under pretense of congratulations, her smile for Harlan brittle as spun sugar. "You look stunning, Mom." Then to Brooke, softer, laced with code. "Save me a dance?" Harlan laughed it off, oblivious, sweeping Lila into a familial twirl that masked the undercurrents. Brooke watched, heart pounding as they moved, mother and daughter in name, but the space between held Brooke's unraveling truth. The night peaked in a haze of champagne toasts and veiled barbs, the elite toasting legacies while ignoring the fractures beneath. Brooke excused herself to the balcony, the humid air a balm against the crush, lighting a rare cigarette with hands that shook. Footsteps followed, Lila's silhouette emerging from the gloom. "You can't hide forever," she said, plucking the smoke from Brooke's fingers, inhaling deep before passing it back. Their shoulders brushed, the party's murmur a distant roar. "I have to," Brooke replied, smoke curling like confessions. It's a fire we'd both burn in. The town would devour Harlan's reputation, and yours. God, Lila, you're just starting." But her free hand found Lila's, intertwining fingers in the dark, the contact a lifeline amid the storm. Lila turned, backing Brooke against the railing, her body a shield from prying eyes. Let them devour. I'd rather ashes with you than this polished hell alone. The kiss that followed was fierce, all teeth and tongue. A declaration against the night. Brooke melted into it, cigarette forgotten, falling into the abyss they'd both craved. They didn't hear the door open. Harlan's gasp shattered the moment. A shard of glass in the velvet dark. Brooke. The name was a question laced with venom. Harlan's face paling under the moon's indifferent glow. Lila pulled away, eyes wide with defiance and dread, while Brooke stood frozen, the taste of betrayal metallic on her tongue. The confrontation spilled back inside, away from witnesses, into a courtroom thick with the scent of wool and wine. Harlan's voice rose in crescendos of accusation, her hands gesturing like accusations. How long? Under my roof? With my daughter. Lila fired back, voice steady as steel. Your daughter? She's been more mother to me than you ever were, buried in your deals. And this says it's real. More than your paper empire. Brooke interjected, voice cracking. Harlan, please. It wasn't planned. Just happened. But the words crumbled under Harlan's stare. Cold as the river in winter. Happened? You think that's an excuse? In this town, in our world, this destroys us. Everything I've built, for us, for her. The argument devolved into sobs and silences, Harlan storming to the car, leaving Brooke and Lila in the wreckage. They drove home in separate vehicles, the night air slicing through cracked windows, Monroe's lights blurring into streaks of judgment. At the house, Harlan packed a bag with mechanical efficiency, her eyes dry as dust. Stay here with your conscience, she spat at Brooke. I'll be at the club. We talk tomorrow, lawyers maybe. This ends now. The door slammed, echoing like a guillotine. Lila reached for Brooke, but she recoiled, the weight of consequence crashing down. What have we done? Brooke whispered, sinking to the floor, the rug bunching under her like waves. Lila knelt beside her, arms enveloping, but the embrace felt tainted now, shadowed by the ruin they'd wrought. Sleep came in fits, dawn breaking harsh and accusatory. Harlan didn't call. Lila brewed coffee, her movements quiet, defeated. We'll fix this, she said, but Brooke shook her head, the fixed lights of the kitchen mocking their fragility. The betrayal had cracked the foundation, and in its fissures truths long buried clawed their way out. Societal chains that bound not just love, but identity, class, the very air they breathed in Monroe's stratified haze. The fallout settled like dust after a detonation, fine and suffocating, coating every surface of the house on Elmwood Lane. Harlan stayed away, her absence a void filled with voicemails from mutual friends, polite inquiries laced with curiosity's poison. Heard Harlan's in town early. Everything all right. Brooke deleted them unread, her phone a brick in her pocket, while Lila hovered like a shadow, cooking meals neither touched, her guitar silent for the first time in memory. Brooke threw herself into the garden again, but the azaleas mocked her now, their blooms wilting under relentless sun, petals curling like accusations. She yanked them out by roots, dirt caking her nails, sweat stinging eyes that blurred with unshed tears. Lila found her there mid-afternoon, kneeling in the chaos. You're destroying it, Lila said softly, dropping beside her, hands stilling Brooke's frenzy. Let me help. Together they replanted, choosing wilder stock, ferns and honeysuckle that Harlan would despise for their untamed sprawl. As soil sifted through fingers, Lila spoke of Oregon, painting pictures of rain-slick streets where couples walked hand in hand without the town's tallying gaze. We could go, she urged, voice threaded with hope. Start over. No scriptis, no staris. Brooke's laugh was hollow, a sound scraped from bone. And leave what? The garage I sold my soul to afford? Harlan's name on the deed that keeps a roof over us. But the words faltered, her hand brushing Lila's in the earth, the contact grounding amid the upheaval. They rose as dusk fell, washing hands at the outdoor spigot, water cold and clarifying. Lila's thumb traced Brooke's palm, reading lines like a fortune and forbidden stars. What if leaving is the only way to save ourselves? Night brought Harlan's return, not with fury but a weary resignation that cut deeper. She entered through the kitchen door, bag slung over shoulder, eyes scanning the room like a surveyor of ruins. Lila was upstairs, guitar finally humming a mournful tune that filtered down like rain. "We need to talk," Harlan said, sliding into a chair, pouring scotch from the decanter with steady hands. Brooke mirrored her, the burn of liquor a poor substitute for courage. Harlan's confession came measured, words polished by city therapists. "I knew something was off, your distance, her edge. But this? It's not just betrayal. It's a mirror to everything I've ignored." She swirled her glass, ice clinking like chains. "I married you for the steadiness, Brooke. After Elena died, I needed someone to anchor Lila, to anchor me. But love? I thought duty was enough." Brooke's throat tightened, the scotch souring. "Duty's a cage, Harlan. For both of us." The admission hung, raw and reciprocal. Harlan's nod slow, pained. "The town's already buzzing. Ellsworth called, subtle, but she knows. Divorce papers from my lawyer by morning. You'll get the house, it's yours by right. Lila. She'll choose, I suppose." Upstairs, the guitar ceased, footsteps descending like judgments. Lila entered, arms crossed, chin defiant. "Choose? You make it sound like a menu." Harlan met her gaze. The woman who'd birthed her now a stranger in defeat. "It's not. But staying fractures us all. Go to school, Lila. Live your truths away from here." The room thickened with unsaid farewells, Harlan rising to claim the guest room, her footsteps fading up the stairs. Brooke and Lila lingered, the kitchen clock ticking accusations. "She's letting go," Lila whispered, awe and sorrow mingling. Brooke pulled her close, foreheads touching, the scent of honeysuckle clinging to their skin. "But what about us?" They claimed the living room that night, bodies entwining on the couch under a throw blanket frayed at edges, kisses slow and exploratory, mapping territories no longer borrowed. Lila's hands were reverent, tracing collarbones and ribs like sacred text, while Brooke's fingers tangled in hair, pulling her deeper into the rhythm of breaths synced like heartbeats. It was lovemaking born of fracture, tender, urgent, laced with the tang of impending loss. Afterward they lay tangled, Lila's head on Brooke's chest, listening to the cadence beneath. "I love you," Lila murmured, the words a vow etched in the quiet. Dawn brought the lawyer's courier, papers crisp and impersonal, Harlan signing in the breakfast nook with a pen that trembled only slightly. She left for Atlanta by noon, her Mercedes vanishing down the drive, leaving echoes in the gravel. The house exhaled, lighter but hollow, Brooke and Lila wandering its rooms like ghosts reclaiming space. They cooked together. Real food this time, shrimp and grits simmered slow, laughter bubbling as Lila burned the roux, Brooke salvaging with a wink and a kiss. But freedom's edge was sharp. Monroe didn't forget. It festered. Notes appeared on the porch, Bible verses on abomination, anonymous but reeking of Hargrove's sanctimony. At the market, cashiers averted eyes, old clients from the garage days crossing streets to avoid her. Brooke felt the isolation creep, a noose tightening around the life she'd built. Lila, home for the summer, bore it with fire, confronting whispers at the diner, her voice carrying across booths. "Mind your own sins before judging mine." One evening, as lightning bugs flickered in the yard like errant stars, Brooke sat on the porch steps, a beer sweating in her hand, watching Lila chase fireflies with a mason jar, her laughter a balm against the gathering storm. "Remember the first night?" Lila called, jar aglow, fixing lights, breaking chains. Brooke smiled, but shadows lingered in her eyes, the weight of class lines crossed, gender roles shattered, the South's slow boil of prejudice threatening to scald. Harlan called sporadically, conversations civil but barbed, updates on asset splits laced with subtext. "Lila's thriving up north," she'd say, and Brooke would hear the ache beneath, the mother mourning a daughter lost to truths she couldn't contain. Brooke visited once, driving the leased sedan Harlan had insisted on, the city a blur of steel and anonymity. They met in a cafe off Peachtree, Harlan thinner, sharper, her smile a fragile truce. "I don't hate you," she said over lattes. "I hate what this place does to us, turns love into leverage." Brooke nodded, stirring sugar she didn't need. "It's bigger than us. The town's got its hooks deep, class, kin, all twisted into knots we can't untie." Harlan's hand covered hers briefly, a gesture of absolution. "Untie anyway. For her. For you." Driving back, windows down, wind whipping hair, Brooke felt a thaw, the first crack in the ice of guilt. Summer waned, Lila's return to Oregon looming like a guillotine's shadow. They filled days with urgency. Road trips to the coast, toes in Atlantic foam, salt air erasing Monroe's grime. Nights under stars, bodies woven in the bed that had once been Harlan's, now theirs in reclamation. "Come with me," Lila pleaded one midnight, rain pattering roof like impatient fingers. "The university hires adjuncts. Your library degree could work. We build something real. Away from the magnolias and malice." Brooke traced her lover's spine, vertebrae like piano keys under skin. And abandon everything? The house, the ghosts. But the question was rhetoric, her heart already packing phantom suitcases. Lila kissed her deeply, sealing the pact. "Ghosts don't pay rent. We do." The decision crystallized over cornbread and collards, Lila's last home-cooked meal before the airport run. "I'm selling the place," Brooke announced, fork midway to mouth. "Proceeds split fair, Harlan's already agreed. We'll find our corner in Portland, start small." Lila's eyes welled, joy and terror mingling. "Our corner. God, Brooke, say it again." The town learned piecemeal, rumors swelling like the Chattahoochee in flood. Mrs. Ellsworth cornered Brooke at the post office, Bible clutched like a weapon. "Leaving your sins behind? Or just running?" Brooke met her gaze, steady as oak. "Running toward grace, ma'am. The kind you can't quote." Lila, waiting in the truck, honked, their signal, a honk of solidarity. Packing distilled life to essentials. Books dog-eared with marginalia of longing, Lila's guitar case scarred from travels, photo albums where Harlan's face blurred into fond irrelevance. The house, emptied, echoed with farewells unspoken. On moving day, Harlan appeared unannounced, leaning against her car, arms crossed in a pose of reluctant support. "Drive safe," she said, hugging Lila fierce, then Brooke, lingering, a sisterhood forged in fire. "Right when you settle. Monroe misses. Well, not the drama." Lila laughed, tears tracking dust on cheeks. Brooke nodded, throat tight. "Take care of you, Harlan. That's the real anchor." As they pulled away, Monroe shrinking in the rearview, Victorian spires giving way to highway sprawl. Brooke's hand found Lila's over the gearshift, fingers lacing permanent. The road unspooled west, skies opening to endless blue. The south's humid grasp loosening with each mile. They talked in circles and silences, dreams sketched on napkins at truck stops. A cottage near the Willamette, Brooke shelving tomes in a co-op, Lila chasing degrees in environmental lit, their evenings filled with chords and chapters. Betrayal's scar faded to silver, a reminder not of loss but liberation's cost. Yet echoes lingered, texts from old friends, warnings of town's tongue, Harlan's occasional check-ins laced with wry humor. In a motel outside Nashville, rain lashing windows, Lila curled against Brooke, whispering, "We did it. Broke the mold." Brooke kissed her temple, tasting salt of sweat and sea change. And remade it better. Oregon welcomed them gray and green, Portland's bridges arching like invitations. Their apartment overlooked the river, modest but theirs, walls bare for paintings yet to come, bed unmade with promise. First night, unpacking boxes amid pizza boxes, Lila strung lights along the window, fairy bulbs twinkling like the fireflies they'd chased. "To fixing what matters," she toasted with cheap wine, pulling Brooke close. As they danced slow in the glow, city hum a lullaby, Brooke felt the final thaw. Societal norms cracked, not by force but quiet defiance. Love, it turned out, wasn't the chain, it was the key. Portland's rhythm was a counterpoint to Monroe's dirge, all fog-shrouded mornings and evenings alive with street musicians strumming anthems of reinvention. Brooke and Lila settled into the apartment on Division Street, its bay windows framing views of hipsters on fixed-gear bikes and the distant gleam of the steel bridge. Boxes lingered half unpacked, a testament to lives in flux, but the space felt like breath after drowning, expansive, unjudged. Brooke found work at Powell's City of Books, the world's largest independent, her library science degree opening doors to cataloging rare Southern lit. Irony not lost on her as she handled tomes yellowed with Dixie ghosts. "Ever miss the heat?" a coworker asked over breakroom coffee, and Brooke would smile, stirring creamer slow. "Only the kind that burns." Lila thrived at Reed College, her environmental studies major blooming into protests for queer rights and river cleanups. Her energy a vortex pulling Brooke into marches where rainbow flags waved like Monroe's magnolias never could. Nights wove them tighter. Dinners of foraged mushrooms sautéed with local Pinot, Lila's guitar serenading from the fire escape, chords climbing the brick walls like ivy reclaiming ruin. Their lovemaking evolved, less frantic now, more a dialogue of touches. Brooke's fingers learning the dip of Lila's waist anew, Lila's lips tracing freckles faded from city suns. "You're home," Lila would murmur post-climax. Head pillowed on Brooke's thigh, and the word settled deep, rooting where doubt once festered. But scars itched reminders of the cost. Harlan's emails arrived fortnightly, updates on Monroe's machinations. The house sold to a young couple from Atlanta. Proceeds wired cleanly. Town gossip shifted to fresher scandals, her name fading to footnote. Found solace in a book club. Harlan wrote once, wry emoji punctuating. Women like us, widows of expectation. Brooke replied with photos of Portland's rose gardens. Captions light but loaded. Blooming wild here. Lila's calls home were rarer, her voice bright but edged when she bridged the gap. Dad's side wants nothing to do, called it confusion. She'd report, tossing phone aside to pace. Brooke pulled her down, legs tangling on the couch. Their loss. We're the story now. Yet in quiet hours Brooke wondered at the human toll. The betrayal not just of vows but bloodlines frayed. The humanistic ache of choices that orphaned even as they freed. Autumn painted the city in russet and gold. Leaves crunching under boots on forest floor hikes in Forest Park. One trail, steep and switchbacked, led to a overlook where the Willamette snaked silver below. Lila packed a thermos of cider, blankets for impromptu picnics, her enthusiasm infectious. "This is us," she declared, spreading tartan wool, pouring steaming mugs. Brooke leaned back on elbows watching clouds scud. No porches, no prying eyes. Just sky. Lila's hand found hers, thumb circling knuckles. Sky with strings attached. "I got the fellowship. 6 months in Costa Rica reforesting mangroves." Pride swelled in Brooke's chest, chased by a shadow. "When?" Lila's grin faltered. "January. You'll come visit, beaches, howler monkeys, no humidity like home." But the distance loomed, a preview of life's inevitable pulls. Winter crept in damp and relentless. Portland's rains a gentle siege compared to Georgia thunder. They decorated the apartment with thrift store garlands, Lila insisting on a menorah alongside the tree. "For all the lights we've fixed." Holiday cards from Monroe arrived, Harlan's script elegant. "Wishing you both the peace we couldn't find there." Brooke pinned it to the fridge, a talisman against old ghosts. New Year's Eve found them at a queer bar in the Pearl District, bass thumping through bodies packed tight, confetti cannons poised. Lila dragged Brooke to the floor, hips swaying to synth waves, her laughter bubbling over the din. Strangers cheered their kiss at midnight, fireworks blooming outside like affirmations. "To us," Lila toasted later, clinking champagne flutes in a corner booth, her eyes alight. Brooke clinked back, heart full but whispering warnings. Freedom fragile, society's undercurrents eternal. Spring thawed the doubts, cherry blossoms shedding pink confetti on sidewalks. Lila's departure neared, suitcases half-packed with field guides and trepidation. Brooke drove her to PDX, the airport a glass cathedral of goodbyes. 6 months, Lila promised at security, backpack slung, kissing Brooke fierce amid travelers' indifference. "Then forever." Brooke nodded, throat lumping, watching her vanish through scanners, the ache familiar but honed sharper by love's depth. Alone, the apartment echoed, guitar case gathering dust. Brooke's shifts at Powell's a blur of barcodes and buried longings. She hikes solo, trails now solitary meditations, the overlook's view mocking her solitude. Letters bridged the gap. Lila scrawled from jungle outposts, inked with tales of toucans and tide pools. Brooks typed on library stationery, weaving Portland's pulse with pleas for postcards. Harlan visited in May, her flight landing on a rare sunbreak. They met at a bistro overlooking the river, Harlan in linen chic, appraising the city with city slicker eyes. "It's you," she said over salmon salads, fork poised. "Rugged real." Brooke laughed, tension easing. "Missed your barbs." Harlan's gaze softened. "Missed the truth-telling." Lila's thriving. "Texts me monkey selfies. Says to tell you not to pine too hard." They walked the waterfront after. Bridges spanning like metaphors for crossings made. Regret? Harlan asked, wind tugging hair. Brooke shook head. Only the hurt we caused. Harlan linked arms sisterly. Hurt heals. Look at us, whole if cracked. She left with a hug that lingered, plane winging south. Brooke returning to an apartment scented with Lila's lingering citrus shampoo. June brought Lila home tanned and tattooed. A mangrove silhouette inked on forearm, story for later. The airport reunion was clumsy, joyous. Arms wrapping, kisses stolen and baggage claim. Laughter bubbling as they loaded duffels into the Subaru. Homeward, hands clasped over console, Lila recounting escapades. Nights under canopy stars, days knee-deep in mud. A flirtation with a biologist dismissed for not being you. Reclamation was ritual. Unpacking treasures. Shells strung as wind chimes. A journal thick with sketches. Then bed bodies reuniting with geographical hunger. Maps of absence erased in sweat-slick sheets. Missed this, Lila gasped, arching under Brooke's mouth. Missed you. Afterward, tangled and sated, they talked futures. Lila's thesis on coastal resilience. Brooke's application to a MFA program for creative nonfiction. Stories like ours, she'd say, penning drafts of Monroe's unraveling. Summer solstice, they hosted a barbecue on the roof deck, inviting Powell's colleagues and Reed activists. A mosaic of lives unbound by Southern strictures. Laughter rang over grill smoke, Lila strumming folk tunes, Brooke flipping burgers with ease born of reinvention. A neighbor, queer and graying, raised a toast. To chosen families. Glasses clinked, the word resonating. Family not forged in blood or betrayal, but elected, enduring. Yet whispers of old worlds intruded. Lila's aunt from Monroe emailed, vitriol veiled as concern. Coming back anytime? Family's family. Lila deleted it, but the barb stuck, prompting a late-night drive to the coast, windows down, radio crooning indie laments. On Cannon Beach, waves crashing Haystack Rock, they built a bonfire, flames dancing shadows on faces. They'll never understand, Lila said, poking embers. Brooke pulled her close, sand-gritting skin. Don't need them to. We do. Fall returned, leaves turning, Lila's graduation looming. A capstone to journeys begun in storm-black kitchens. Brooke penned her story in secret, pages filling with the hook of that fixed light, the unforgettable words that ignited change. For us, she titled it, inking dedication. To Lila, who turned darkness to dawn. Commencement day dawn crisp, Reed's lawns verdant under gowns. Brooke sat front row, Harlan surprisingly present. Flown in, floral corsage pinned, her nod to Brooke warm. Lila crossed stage, diploma aloft, eyes finding them both in the crowd. A bridge mended in applause. Reception followed, punch and pastries, Harlan pulling Lila aside for photos. Then Brooke, the trio framed in fleeting harmony. Later at a riverside bar, Harlan raised glass. Proud of you, kid. And you, to Brooke. For the light you brought. Lila beamed, arm around Brooke's waist. Toasts to fixes. As Harlan departed next morn, airport farewell crisp, she slipped Brooke a check. For the book. Bet on you. Plane gone, Brooke and Lila walked home. Hands swinging, Portland's pulse sinking theirs. Winter whispered of permanence. Rings exchanged in a courthouse ceremony. Simple bands etched with coordinates of their overlook. Vows spoken soft. In storms and solstice, I choose you. Honeymoon in the Cascades, cabin snowbound. Days lost to firelit whispers, nights to each other's geography. Years layered like Portland's rains, Brooke's novel published to quiet acclaim. A Southern Exodus. Reviewers called it, humanistic core lauded for bridging divides. Lila taught at a community college, her classes on eco-justice drawing crowds hungry for hope. Monroe faded to annual cards, Harlan's visits evolving to allyship. Pride parades attended, her own coming out a ripple in still waters. One evening, years on, porch light fixed anew on their own Victorian fixer-upper. Brooke watched Lila garden, hands in soil, their daughter, adopted towhead, toddling nearby with a trowel toy. Like the first time, Lila called, dirt-streaked smile. Brooke knelt beside, kissing temple. Better. Lights fixed. Words remembered. The world turned, norms shifting slow as tides, but their story endured. A testament to love's rebellion, humanistic in its quiet roar. Individuals against the machine, emerging not unbroken, but beautifully bent. Decades wove their tapestry subtle, threads of routine and revelation stitching Brooke and Lila's life into Portland's fabric. The Victorian on Alberta Street, bought with book royalties and adjunct pay, creaked under expansions. A studio for Lila's writing retreats, a library nook for Brooke's growing shelf of memoirs. Their daughter Eloan, named for Cornish wilds Lila romanticized, grew gangly and inquisitive, her questions piercing as her mother's once were. Why do some places hate who you love? Brooke fielded them over breakfasts of oatcakes and jam, Lila chiming in with tales of mangroves and marches. Hate's just fear in disguise, Elle. We outran it. Eloan nodded, pigtails bobbing, sketching rainbows in her sketchpad. Art her outlet, inherited from Lila's guitar-strummed dreams. Harlan visited summers, her Atlanta condo traded for a farmette in Vermont, goats and gardens her new anchors. Escape the South's grip, she'd say, knee-deep in compost, Eloan trailing with wide eyes. Your mama showed me how. Monroe receded to relic status, annual reunions with peripheral kin cordial but distant, the town's prejudices mellowed by time's erosion, though not erased as news clips attested. Fights over books in schools, flags still fluttering defiant. Brooke's novel spawned a sequel, Rivers Unbound, delving deeper into class chasms, its pages a bridge for readers emailing confessions. Your story freed mine. Lila's tenure track solidified, her research on climate queerness, intersections of ecology and identity, earning grants and TED Talks, her voice a clarion in academic halls. Anniversaries marked milestones. 10th with a vow renewal on Cannon Beach, waves lapping vows. 20th a road trip echoing their escape, Eloan now teen-tall shotgun, quizzing on the light story. Brooke retold it sanitized, the hook softened for young ears, but Lila's wink across the console added spice. Words that lit the way, she'd add, hand squeezing Brooke's knee. Challenges came as lives demand. Eloan's coming out at 16, a quiet admission over pie, met with embraces and ice cream, Brooke's heart echoing her own buried youth. Proud, Lila whispered later, tears salting pillows. We built this for her. Health scares too. Lila's bout with thyroid shadow, scans and surgeries blurring months, Brooke's vigil bedside a mirror to storms past. Recovery brought clarity. We're tougher than kudzu, Lila joked, scar faint as a footnote. Harlan's decline crept insidious, a stroke felling her mid-harvest, Vermont greens wilting untended. Brooke and Lila flew east, Eloan in tow, the farm a hush of hospice care. Harlan, frail in flannel, gripped Brooke's hand. Fixed my lights too, you know? Late but bright. Lila read to her from Brooke's books, voice steady, Eloan drawing portraits bedside. Harlan passed at dawn, window open to birdsong, her will dividing acres fair. Vermont plot to Lila, Atlanta savings to Eloan, a note for Brooke. Keep writing our truths. Funeral was small, kin scattered, eulogies laced with her late bloom. Out and proud in Green Mountains, book club becomes salon for Southern exiles. Back in Portland, ashes scattered in the Willamette. To flow free, Lila intoned, boat slicing current. Grief settled soft, a season turning. Eloan left for college. Oberlin, art and activism. Nest emptying with ache and awe. Brooke and Lila rattled in the Victorian. Dinners for two echoing with memories. Empty nest blues, Lila quipped, but her eyes held adventure. They traveled. Costa Rica redux, mangroves reclaimed. Vermont farm stewardship, goat's milk to laughter. Brooke's third book, Echoes of Elmwood, won awards, panels probing its humanistic vein. Love as societal scalpel, cutting norms to heal. 60th birthday for Brooke dawned misty, Lila planning surprise. A cabin in the Olympics, hot springs steaming under evergreens. Eloan arrived, partner in tow. Non-binary artist with tattoos mirroring Lila's. Dinner bubbling with stories swapped. You two started it, Eloan toasted, glass raised. The fix that freed us all. Evenings lengthened, retirements loomed. Brooke to workshops, Lila to mentorships. They adopted a dog, Mutt from the shelter with eyes like Lila's, soulful, steadfast. Walks along the river became rituals, leashes loose, conversations circling back to origins. That night, Brooke mused one twilight, bench creaking under them. Your words unforgettable. Changed everything. Lila leaned head on shoulder, furred companion at feet. And yours unspoken lit the way. Portland hummed around, diverse and defiant. A far cry from Monroe's monochrome. Yet echoes persisted. National headlines of rollback rights. Southern states tightening screws. Lila volunteered, Brooke donated, Aloan protested. Legacy a chain unbroken. One spring Lila proposed a pilgrimage. Monroe closure. Brooke hesitated, ghosts stirring but agreed. Drive south, Aloan navigating the highway a time machine. Elmwood Lane unchanged, house repainted but porch swing same. Creak of memory. They walked the garden, wild now with honeysuckle triumphant. Azaleas long surrendered. Neighbors nodded wary, Hargrove's successor offering tea declined. Riverfront picnic, blanket spread, they unpacked truths. Lila toasting the fixed light. Brooke reading from her book The Hook That Hooked Them. Aloan listened, sketching the scene, 3 generations, lines blurred. Humanity's in the mending, she said, pencil pausing. Lila nodded, arm around Brooke. And the messing up first. Return north, healed old fissures, Monroe a chapter closed. Years flowed, silver threading hair. Joints creaking like houseboards. Grandchildren came, Aloan's twins, chaos of crayons and cuddles. Victorian alive again with patter. Brooke penned final memoir, lights enduring. Epilogue a letter to young selves. Betray to be true, norms bend to will. Twilight years porch swing their throne, dog gray muzzled at feet. Lila's hand in Brooke's rings worn smooth. Worth the storm? Lila asked, sunset gilding Willamette. Brooke kissed knuckles. Every thunderclap. As stars pricked, their story whispered on. A lesbian odyssey from southern shadows to Pacific light. Dramatic in its daring, emotional in its ache, romantic in its root, humanistic in its hope. Forbidden once, now folklore. Proof that love, fixed right, outshines any dark. In the hush of autumn's last gasp, when Portland's maples bled crimson into the gutters, Brooke felt the first true whisper of finality. Not fear, but a gentle unraveling, like yarn from a well-worn sweater. She was 78, Lila 2 years her junior, their bodies maps of miles. Brooke's hands veined like rivers she'd crossed. Lila's stride slowed but spirit unbowed. Aloan visited weekly, twins in tow, now 8 whirlwinds of questions and watercolors. Her partner Theo orchestrating carpools with quiet efficiency. The family they'd forged pulse strong. A counter to the world's relentless churn. Brooke's mornings began ritual. Coffee black as Monroe nights, journal open to pen fragments. Echoes of that unforgettable utterance. Lila's voice in darkness a lodestar. Her books line shelves worldwide, translations bridging divides, readers mailing tales of their own fixes. A teacher in Texas outing after decades. A farmer in Georgia planting pride flags amid cotton. Your words woke us, one wrote, and Brooke replied always. Yours lit mine first. Lila, retired to advocacy, mentored via Zoom. Queer youth in red states. Her stories of mangroves morphing to metaphors for resilience. Roots deep, branches free, she'd say. Screen glowing as Portland rain pattered panes. Evenings they cooked, stews simmered slow. Recipes evolved from cornbread to congee, influences of travels layered. Taste the journey, Lila would murmur, spooning broth, her kiss tasting of cumin and constancy. Health's thief struck subtle. Brooke's heart erratic as summer storms, meds a daily dance. Lila monitored with doctor's precision, her own arthritis a twinging guitar fingers now strumming softer. Aloan fretted, organizing checkups, but Brooke waved her off. We've outrun worse. Nights when pain nipped, Lila's arms anchored, whispers weaving spells. Remember the porch? Lights flickering, us flickering brighter. Winter brought Harlan's shadow anew, not grief but a letter from her estate's executor, a bequest unearthed. Vermont farm deeded full to Lila, with addendum for Brooke. Plant what grows wild. They flew east, snow blanketing fields, goats long gone but barns sturdy. Aloan joined, twins building snow forts, laughter echoing hollow halls. She knew, Lila said, touring rooms hand in Brooke's. Us ending as kin. Spring thawed resolve. Sell the farm, funds to Aloan's arts nonprofit. Scholarships for southern queer kids. A ripple from Elmwood's wake. Back west, Portland bloomed defiant. Pride Month murals splashing streets. Brooke and Lila marched arm in arm, canes tapping rhythm. Aloan filming for her docuseries. Fixers. A love in lights. Mom, tell the hook. She'd prompt, camera rolling. Brooke obliged, voice steady. Storm hit, power out, Lila's words in the dark. What if you didn't have to? Unforgettable. Unmade me. Summer solstice, 50th anniversary. Roof deck strung with those original fairy lights. Now LEDs enduring. Guests gathered, Powell's vets, Reed radicals, a Lowen's circle. Tables groaning under potluck. Shrimp grits nodding to roots, pad thai honoring detours. Toasts flowed, Theo's rye. To storms survived, a Lowen's tearful. To lights that led. Lila pulled Brooke to dance, slow sway to Coltrane. Bodies remembering youth's heat. Forever fixed. She breathed, forehead to forehead. Fall deepened, leaves a carpet for walks shortened. Brooke's journal filled last pages, reflections on betrayal's gift, shattering norms to forge self. On class's ghost, faded but felt in a Lowen's grants to Milltown makers. On gender's grace, love's fluidity, a balm to rigid rights. Humanity, she wrote, lies in the pull between loyalty and leap. We leaped. November chill bit, Brooke's breath shorter. Hospital a reluctant harbor. Lila bedside. A Lowen pacing hall with twins distracted by iPads. Not yet, Lila commanded, holding Brooke's hand, monitors beeping soft. Brooke smiled, oxygen mask fogging. Plenty fixed, love. Time to dim. Lila shook head, tears carving tracks. Bright always. Vigil stretched, family rotating. Theo brewing tea, a Lowen reading from Brooke's books. Passages of that kitchen dark, words that sparked. Twins drew cards, stick figures under porch lights. Dawn broke gray, Brooke's eyes fluttering. Lila, she whispered, mask aside. Tell Lowen loves the current. Ride it. Lila nodded, throat working. She knows. We all do. Breath stilled. Room holding collective inhale. Lila leaned in, kiss to brow. Wait for me at the overlook. I'll follow. A Lowen entered, collapsing into arms. Twins clambering gentle. Grandma fixed everything. One murmured, crayon portrait clutched. Brooke and Lila, hands linked, lights haloed. Funeral was riverside, Willamette lapping eulogies. Lila spoke first, voice cracked but clear. She hooked us with a storm, held us through the flood. Brooke taught that love defies drafts, societal scripted. Her light endures. A Lowen followed, film clips rolling. Brooke's laugh in jungles, her pen scratching truths. A life dramatic, emotional. Our romance, our humanism. Ashes to water, boat slicing, family watching current carry. Grief's wake, Lila soldiered. Workshops in Brooke's name. Journal published as Unforgettable Dawn. A life's coda, humanistic hammer on prejudice's anvil. A Lowen premiered her doc at festivals. Fixers winning hearts, sparking dialogues in diners from Portland to Peachtree. Twins grew, inheriting stories. Your grandmas broke the mold, remade the world. Years on, Lila at 90, Vermont visits to the farm. Now nonprofit haven, cabins for queer elders fleeing old hates. She sat porch swing, cane tapping, a Lowen's daughter. Great-grand artist prodigy beside sketching horizons. Tell the light story, the girl urged, pencils poised. Lila smiled, eyes distant. Storm came, power fled. I said to your great-grandma, what if you didn't have to? She listened. And we flew. Portland called home. Apartment downsized but lights strung eternal. Lila's last entry, journal passed to kin. Brooke fixed me first. Society's chains? We slipped them, hearts free. Message for the mending. Love loud, leap long. The dark always yields to dawn. As solstice circled, Lila joined the current. Arms open to the overlook's weight. Family gathered, lights twinkling, stories swapped. A legacy luminous, forbidden no more. In Monroe's shadow, Portland's glow, their tale echoed. Conflict conquered, betrayal to blessing. A lesbian arc bent toward justice's light.